Wow, thank you for being here today, and welcome to the PMO. My name is Chris Metz, and I have been given the privilege to work with you in the program management organization. And I want you to know how much of a privilege that I do feel it is. I have seen your work. I have seen the results of what it is you do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm looking forward now to bringing that together and to creating what has been described to me in terms of the expectations as a world-class organization. I think that we have all the opportunity, all of the tools, everything that could be there and in place to make this organization exactly that. Many of you may or may not be aware of some of my background as it relates to that assertion that we are a world-class organization. I have had the privilege of representing the FAA in places around the world. I was a senior FAA representative in Tokyo, responsible for the Pacific Rim. I was senior FAA representative in Beijing, responsible for North Asia. And then I was the director of the international offices in Singapore, responsible for all the Asia-Pacific region in terms of overall FAA. And I can tell you, without exception, as I entered the rooms and the halls of government and other places in the world, and as I attended the numerous global meetings, they all looked to the FAA and said, well, how are you doing this? What is it that you're doing? Tell us a little more. Bring us on board. Tell us how you're doing it. So when I say that we're given the challenge as a new program management organization to come together and create a world-class program management organization, I mean world-class. The world is looking to you for what you do and how you do it. And I know that as a result of that, we're going to be successful. Now, this isn't a new concept. We've been hearing about it in bits and pieces for almost a year now. Just to give you some background as a reminder and to set the stage for the leadership of the organization to step forward, let me tell you a little of what the background is. So about a year or so ago, Randy Babbitt, the FAA administrator at the time, was looking at the FAA and its contracting resources and all of the redundancy that was said to be out there, and decided to call in the monitor group to do an independent study and look at what we, the FAA, do and how we, the FAA, might be able to even do that we do in an exceptional, outstanding way, maybe even a little better, at the least a little more efficiently as we look at the restricted resources. As the result of that group, an initiative was created within the FAA called Foundations for Success. That Foundations for Success program suggested that while program management activities within the ATO are aligned with the various business units, there was a lot of redundancy and possibly some inconsistency. Now, that's normal. That would be expected. But that inconsistency was causing as you might imagine, some opportunities and some challenges within the rest of the organization and within the stakeholders of the various programs. When particular interests get activities and things directed in one direction from one group of program management organization called, under the hat of the FAA. And trust me when I say FAA is the FAA outside of the FAA. And we all know that, right? FAA is the FAA. It's not the ATO, or within the ATO, it's not en route or tech ops or terminal, it's the FAA. And why is it that the FAA does it this way this time and this way this time? So in response to that type of challenge, and there are others out there that might call it criticism. It's not. It's a challenge to say, hey, I think we ourselves can look at that and say, hey, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And to start to promote some of the things that have made us successful across all those lines and in all those areas, the decision was made to bring all that program management activity together into one. and that is called the Program Management Organization. Now, officially, we became an organization in October of last year, but you're never truly solid in a permanent organization until you bring the people in. And that took place, as you all know, on the 17th of January. That's why I can stand up here now and officially welcome you to the PMO and to tell you that it is an honor to learn and to hear all the great work that's taking place. But now, in response to the challenge and the background for the reason of putting the PMO together, then it's up to us to, as we transition over, not say to ourselves, and we do, in a lot of cases, the work goes on as it was yesterday, okay? But also we should each independently and individually, and then as organizations, both our smaller organizations and our collective organizations, we should all say to ourselves, okay, why did we do this? And what am I doing to contribute to overcoming that? And so let me offer 3 things that I think will fit that model. The first one that I would offer to you is that we're looking for consistency. And so where you have consistency as an individual or as a smaller work group, we need to bring that consistency to the entire organization. So we need your help in doing that. The second, after consistency, is the introduction of and the exercise of best practices. There is a solid challenge from our top leadership, both from an FAA perspective, Michael Huerta, and from an ATO perspective, David Grizzle and Rick Ducharme, that we take advantage of the lessons already learned, of the hard knocks already taken, and that we learn from those and that we incorporate and implement those. So as you start to look more closely at our organization and the organizational charts, you'll see that as opposed to a horizontal organization that essentially takes en route, terminal, tech ops, and then realigns them now under the umbrella of the PMO, you'll see that it's more of a vertical organization now, with 3 main lines of business that integrate all of those former lines into a particular area. So organizationally, we're looking to approach and to adapt and to incorporate those best practices. It's incredible the amount of knowledge that we have in this organization. It's incumbent upon us to take that knowledge and to incorporate it into a way that helps create that world-class PMO that you are now part of. So that's number 2. Number 3, performance management and accountability. We want everybody in this organization to be able to step up and to meet their potential, to develop themselves, to develop their organization, and to have a say in what it is that will do the things that we think we need to incorporate consistency and best practices. It's important that everybody understand their role, that they accomplish their role, and that they're accountable for their role. And that in doing that, and in up-leveling that, and having that be a focus of our organization, we will meet the challenge that is associated with becoming a world-class organization. So that's not easy. That's not business as usual. We are trying to raise the bar, if you will, on what it is that we do. I can come to you and tell you that when we've done this in the past, even within this group of people, that the outcome has always been positive. Many of you know that for the last couple of years, going on 3 now, I've been associated with ERAM, which is one of our larger, more complex, and highly visible programs. It's not to diminish the fact that we have 149 or more other programs, but just related to that one, the exposure, the accountability, the changes that were required in order to bring that to, and many of you may or may not be aware, we reached 6 more IOCs over the course of the last month and a half. And I congratulate each and every one of you for that. But we got there much later than we had anticipated, because we had a culture for a period of time where people knew that things needed to be fixed or presented or changed, but we didn't necessarily promote that thought, idea, or practice. It was only when we did, only when we opened the door to each of your opinions and opportunities and ideas that we were as successful as we've become. Are we there yet? No. We still need that. But we also then need to take that and we need to promote it into the rest of the organization. And you're the folks that can do that. So now, somebody may come up to you at some point and say, so what is it? What is it that the PMO does? What's your role? What is it that I can say is different because you've got a PMO? So I've already talked about the fact that we've got now the umbrella organization and the vertical organizational structure that will inspire and by virtue of even just the organization itself, help integrate a lot of the programs and best practices and consistencies that we've been talking about. The other, though, is for each of us to have a clear understanding of what it is that a world-class PMO does. So I'm going to offer to you, and some of my management team have heard this as I've been sharing it with my colleagues at the senior leadership level, the 4 Ds, or the quad Ds, or the definition, if you will, of the PMO. The PMO will define all those marvelous ideas and concepts and systems that are presented to us. Define the definition of which then goes into what makes it a program, how it integrates with all the other programs that are out there. That's all part of that definition phase. We will then design from a programmatic perspective that component. So we get a requirement, we get a concept of operations, we get some R&D work. It comes in and it hits that definition process, and we define it from what it would mean to the NAS, and then we design it in accordance with that. After we design it, we develop it, and then we deploy it. So the 4 Ds are define, design, develop, and deploy. That deploy fits the D, so thanks for bearing with me, but it has so many more meanings. It also is the deploy and maintain and all of the other aspects that go with long-term oversight of a program. And so that is what we bring. Now, a lot of you have heard about Nextgen, and Nexgen's plays an important role in our organization. So where do they fit? And you know that AJV, for example, and the Mission Support Group is out there, and that and you've heard our senior leadership say things like everything needs to be ops driven and technology supported, or things like that. And how is it that we fit into that? We're the lead bar, if you'd like to look at it in those terms. We are the line of bringing an idea, a concept, or an enhancement to the operation. The operation develops the requirements and the concept and delivers that to us for us to do the 4 Ds. The Nextgen organization looks from a 30,000 foot, I like the Apple company who's come along and has given us that concept of the cloud. If I'd have used this cloud concept a couple of years ago, we might not have understood it. But now that we understand that there's a cloud and that there's a benefit to the cloud, and that the cloud can be there and can have the elements that are needed, and we can download from those elements, whether it be funding or concept ideas or things of that nature, And then we can up level to it the things that they need. But that's kind of that 30,000-foot perspective that helps oversee and play some of the political games that need to be played as it relates to program management and to implementation. And I call them games. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. It literally then becomes a strategic play for getting some of these larger complex programs into play. And there's certainly a political piece of it. But it's all of those things and giving that oversight and giving those insights, but it is us that defines, designs, develops, and deploys with our expertise and with our knowledge. All along that path to deployment, we're stepping in and out of the operation. At sometimes it will be a mission support step in and out of. Go back to the requirements people, interact with them, integrate their ideas and their thoughts and their comments. Make sure that we're moving in the direction that we need to go. And then back into whatever the D phase that it is. And then step back out again. This time, let's go to the tech center. Let's bring live personnel in. Let's see if it's moving to what it is. And then back into the situation. One of the things that we found, and let me see how you guys react to this. So, ERAM. I came back from Singapore in June of 2009. For those associated with ERAM program, they know that June of 2009 was the deployment phase of ERAM to the operation. Does anybody recall that? It was when we were going to turn ERAM on in the operation for the first time, June of 2009. And so when I got to the field was looking at what I'll call the ERAM fence. It was there. And they were waiting for ERAM to come over that fence. Now, I grew up in Miami, and I've shared this with a couple of people. I shared it with the Pophams last week, but I grew up in Miami, and as a little boy, loved baseball. And everybody knows that in Florida, in springtime is baseball time. When I was a kid, the Baltimore Orioles, anybody here a fan of the Baltimore Orioles? Yeah, just a couple of you, great. That's a true fan is the one that admits to it even in sour times. I got you. Very good. I grew up in Miami during the heyday of the Orioles baseball, and let me tell you, it was an exciting place to be. Me and my friends could not always afford the tickets, though, to get into the Miami baseball stadium in spring to watch the spring training games. Most of the time we could, and a lot of times they just let us in because we were kids, and we'd have a good old time, but other times we'd have to hang out outside the stadium, and we'd hang out in a lot of cases playing pepper games and playing catch and things like that with our gloves on the outside of the center field fence. And every now and then we'd hear the crack of the ball on the bat, and we knew that that meant that the ball was coming over the fence. At the same time, we had no idea, because it was a solid fence, where the ball would be coming, at what altitude, and where it would land. How many of those home runs do you think we, my friends and I, caught? Not one. Now, we chased some down afterwards and had some pretty cool balls, and I've got one signed by Boog Powell, of all people, but did not catch one, right? A little inefficient if we're talking about a computer or an automation program coming to the organization. But when we talk about fences, and you know culturally we do that, well, when it comes over the fence, will they be ready, or will they be in a position to support it? And we talk about these things all the time. The organization that I just outlined to you and the cultural change that I'm looking for is to do away with those fences. What I'm looking for, and it always worked much better for us, is I'm looking to come inside the fence, see where the ball is going, and if at all possible, now I'll revert from a baseball analogy to a football one, get into the backfield, take the handoff, and let the operation bring the ball to the field. You see the subtle differences? Let's do away with fences. Let's ask ourselves, okay, is this something that once I'm finished with it, and only once I'm finished with it, I can take it to the operation? No, let's think differently. Let's change the course of that, and let's create consistencies, best practices, and open lines of communication that allow us, through performance management, that allow us to be accountable and responsible and reactive to the needs of everybody that is supported by our operation and our organization. I went a little longer than I had expected today, but I'm excited to be a part of this team, and I appreciate all of you. Now, I would like to introduce our leadership team, senior leadership team, and turn some time over to each of them so that they can outline their organizational structure and some of the things that they're thinking in terms of where we're trying to go and some of the integrated thoughts that they might have. But before I first hand it off to Mike Goff, who runs our systems engineering group, let me ask them to stand up, if it's all right with you, this first row here. And how many of you sit on the front row at church, for example? Yeah. Right? You're always trying to go to the back row. So my hat's off to them. They came up here, and you guys left the front row for them. So thank you very much. We've got Mike Goff, Vinny Capizzuto, Jim Eck, who's deputy, although we're referring to our deputies within the ATO as executive directors, and we're glad to have Jim. Malcolm Andrews, Kip Spurio, and Lisa Ryan. Absent today is David Ingram, who is in a particular course that will be great and of benefit to us. And so Jim will handle that. That would be the program control box if you've all looked at the org charts. I'm assuming everybody here received both a welcome letter from me and Jim and a copy of the organizational charts. If you have not, please look to your management team to make sure that you get those. And know that we were extremely sincere in our welcoming you to the organization and in our expectation that you'll come into the organization and that you'll contribute in the way that we fully expect and that you know needs to be done. And so thank you. With that in mind, let me go ahead and invite them to sit back down, and you'll hear from each of them in a few minutes. I'm going to invite Mike Goff up here to talk about his organization. So thank you, everybody.
Hello. Hi, I'm Mike Goff, and some of what you heard is true, probably. So we refer to ourselves really simply as system engineering. The title of the box and what we're trying to do is different than a pure system engineering group, right? So the title of the box is System Integration, Systems Integration, not System Integration, Systems Integration and Requirements Analysis. So we're trying to provide more front-end help and more front-end insight in establishing communication and coordination with the ops side and with Nextgen, right? So at Nextgen at 3 levels. So we have the architecture level, we have the emerging portfolio level, then we have the solution set coordinator levels. So there's lots of dialogue that needs to go back and forth, and we need to be able to interface at some different levels, and then internally facilitate inside the PMO with the programs, right? So that's a lot of what we're trying to establish and how we're going to work. The one thing that is my caveat is that for those of us that were here when we stood up the ATO, there were a lot of days when you'd call somebody on the phone and they'd tell you they don't do that anymore and they don't know who does and kind of hang up. So we're trying to avoid that, right? So we are trying to look very carefully for gaps and overlaps and to understand, at least inside my group, what people are involved in. Does it belong somewhere else? If it does, facilitate that transition and handoff so that so nothing falls through the cracks. So we all know things fall through the cracks, but we're trying very hard not to have that happen. So for the time being, everybody is kind of doing what they did January 16th, and we're evolving slowly to make sure that we don't lose things. So in the 30-second overview, that's what we do and how we're trying to come together. Vinny Capizzuto as the Air Traffic Systems Directorate.
I didn't drop the baton, so nice transition. So it's kind of exciting being part of the air traffic, the program management organization, and I think the corporate leadership board in the front row here is challenging. We challenge each other. We have great conversations, and I'm looking forward to the making things happen, and that's where we get our juice, right? That's where we get excited, making things happen. So part of the organization that I'll be participating and working with all of you is called the Air Traffic Systems. And again, you know, it's integrated with everything that's in the PMO, so it doesn't stand alone. I think the most important thing is it's in relationship to the bringing the customer what they need. That is our number one focus, and it's life cycle centric. So it has the second level engineering group at the Tech Center for automation systems. And I think that's a big deal. For me, that's the 24/7 operations. That's really where it's at. That's what's first. In the sustained part of it, that's what we have running, and we got to put all our energy into making sure that stays real. But it's also exciting to do the front end part, right? So we have to define it, and design it, and develop it, and that's cool because we have to do both at the same time. So we got to keep the vision. We have to know where we're going. We have to kind of make sure we don't break anything. So you got a lot of things going on at the same time. I think one of the things that's exciting about this is we have strong collaboration with our union partners. I think that's important in what we're doing. I think that's the way we're going to get to the end. I think, you know, just to kind of get a sense of what's in the organization, it's essentially all the surveillance systems, the automation platforms for air traffic control separation. We also have the decision support tools. And we talked about delivery to the endpoint, the point of transaction. In some cases, we have units that are actually going directly into the cockpit of the aircraft. And I think that's kind of exciting as well. So we really do bring the product to the end state. And you know, we're just part of the value chain. And I recognize that. And I think it's exciting to be there supplying forward to the point of transaction. For air traffic systems, we have an all-hands planned next week on the 23rd here at headquarters. And so more questions to, you know, we can deep dive. We can get into a little bit more of that area. And then we're also going to do it at the Tech Center on the 24th, so we can follow up. Malcolm is the next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Malcolm Andrews, and I will be heading up the Enterprise Services Group. I'm quite excited. One thing is that, you know, I'm going to be, for the next several months, learning all the new acronyms because it's all new to me, but it's all going to be good. The Enterprise Services comprise four main groups. We have communications, the data communications, an information network group. We have a navigation group. We have the weather group, and then we also did something special. We took Datacom, the program, and broke it into its own separate group because of the size of the program, the magnitude of the political, the interfaces is just pretty big, and we wanted to focus on that. Within enterprise services, we have what's called Next-Gen transformational programs. And I'm sure you've all heard about the SWIM program, NNU, Datacom, and these are going to be foundations for Next-Gen. So a lot of exciting stuff. Looking forward to learning all of that and getting situated with the other programs. I think the program, the PMO organization brings us together so that we can share those best practices and just get better at what we're going to do and what we're going to be doing to provide products out to the field. As we go forward, we're going to be, you know, leaning on each other, sharing those experiences to enable us to provide better products, better services to the folks out there in the NAS. Looking forward to this. Looking forward to meeting all the new people that I haven't met. Some of you I have met. And again, I'm happy to be here and excited. Next is Jimek.
Thank you, Malcolm. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here myself. This would normally be a down day for me. It's the end of football season, and that's a long time. Baseball comes along, and I like baseball, and certainly played it through my career, but I'll be waiting for September to come back, at least as a spectator. There's probably a lot to be learned about what we do as an organization called a PMO from anybody who would watch the sport of football and watch the business of football play out. Last night, if anybody was watching the actual events going on beyond the commercials themselves, would have seen that there were two great franchises playing football yesterday. And I use the word franchise because not so much, they were great teams, no doubt about it. And it actually pains me as a Philadelphia fan to have to say New York and Boston might have great franchises, but in fact they do. And that means there is organizational excellence from the top of each of those organizations, from the ownership all the way down to every player on that field. And I would tell you that I don't think, from watching that game, that the team with the best quarterback won, and I don't think that the team with the best coach won the game either. So that tells you, there you go. But that tells you something about football, and I think it rings true for what we do. It's not a superstar kind of business that we're in. It's, in fact, a team activity. It's something that requires more than a single program manager who knows how to pull a rabbit out of a hat at the end of a game in order to get a program across the finish line. I think what we're looking for, and as far as expectations go, certainly we want, as Chris pointed out, we want world-class organization, but we really want a culture of excellence in the organization, which means that we need the greatest of system engineers, we need the greatest of second-level engineers, we need the greatest COTARs, we need the greatest legal advice, we need the greatest contracting officers and greatest business managers, all part of a team with a program manager. And we're not looking for one person to save us all. We're looking for teams that can be built and sustain themselves and then sustain each other in a culture where we're trading thoughts and ideas and lessons learned. One of the tenets of football is that you go into the locker rooms and you go in during the week and you get ready for the next week's game and the next week's opponent, and you watch a lot of film of what you did the week before. And as an example of kind of that excellence in the organization and what that really means, they interviewed one of the former players of the Patriots this week among the millions of interviews that went on before the Super Bowl. And they asked him, so what's with this guy, Coach Belichick of New England? Why is he so good? He's been to 8 Super Bowls. He's won 5 of them, either with his former teams as the offensive coordinator, maybe defensive coordinator, and as the head coach in New England. And the guy basically said, look, I came from another team, got to the ready room, we sat down and started looking film the first day I was there, and 30 seconds into that film coming on, he heard the coach from the front of the room yelling out, Brady, what on earth were you thinking during that play? He said, I suddenly found myself sitting a little straighter in the chair. He said, you know, if the coach can call out the biggest superstar on the team, a guy that's definitely going to the Hall of Fame, a guy who's won 3 Super Bowls, then everybody in that room can expect that they ought to be the subject of critique, and they ought to expect that they're going to get immediate feedback from the coach. Now, I don't think we're going to create an organization where Chris Metz is yelling at us all the time. That's a kind of a football thing. But the notion that we would have an organization where we would not only accept and encourage feedback, but we would demand it as part of the way in which we're going to organize and work in the future is something that we need as an organization if we're going to have a world-class group and a culture of excellence. So, you know, I think what we're going to do is we're going to create that through what we call a program control group. Dave Ingram wasn't here today. He's actually over getting training as part of a certification program, and we decided that actually that's more important than him standing up here today professing about program control, but rather actually sort of living what it is we want people to do. We need people who are certified, we need people who are trained, we need people who are actively engaged in programs, and again, at every level, from PM down to business management through COs and COTARs and everybody it takes in order to run acquisitions. What you'll see is that we're going to create a small group. It's going to report to Chris and I. It will oversee all of the programs. It will, in fact, work with programs on acquisition best practices, make sure that we have consistent practice throughout the organization. It will collect all the metrics and create the venues in which we're going to review how we do our business for lessons learned. probably one of the most significant things of that is we're going to create a program management council, because we've got a lot of things going on in the Acquisition Executive Board and the Acquisition Workforce Council, where it would be best to get the practitioners who are really trying to actually enact this policy together to take a look at it, understand it, vet it, and give us feedback as to whether we're going in the right direction. One of the other significant things that the program control group is going to do is we're going to put together program reviews. And as it turns out, this week, we're actually going to kick off the program review process. And the program review process is going to be an open process. We have finance coming in with us. We're going to partner with Nextgen on this. We have acquisition policy and AIO folks who have traditionally been part of the review processes that we go through in order to get through OMB 300 process, through CFO review process, up to the JRC, and out to OMB and GAO and IG. So that group of folks will be in the room. We have 4 of our programs, 3 of our programs, and one of the Nextgen activities coming through. All the directors here will be as reviewers of those programs. And so this Thursday, we'll take a look at the Datacom program, the SWIM program, Runway Status Lights program, and then Nextgen is going to come in and brief us on Segment Alpha status and Segment Bravo planning, so that the PMO can get a look at what's going on and what's planned to come at us as an organization. So we're looking forward to that. It's very exciting for me that we're going to have that kind of transparency and that kind of cross-organizational dialogue with the folks that we know we have to work with on a daily basis. And I think it's going to be a good kickoff. I think we're going to take a little time to get this program control group staffed up. Dave really only has himself and 2 other folks in that organization. I think we're going to grow it to maybe 8 or so folks, along with some contract support. And then we'll reach down into the respective directorates in order to get additional support for that activity, because what we're really after is that the programs themselves start to understand the value of feedback, the value of acquisition practice, the value of having consistent practice across the organization, and insight about what other people do. And so that'll be kind of a foundational element of where we're going and how we're going to go there as an organization. I hope you're looking forward to it as I am. And that's all I have for this morning. And I
Hey,
turn
Jim.
it back to Mr. Metz.
What were you thinking when you said that?
Exactly.
Yeah, let's go. Just leave it. We'll need it for the, thanks very much. Now, this team that I introduced to you, including Kip Spurio, who is a technical advisor, and Lisa Ryan, who will be coming in as a senior advisor, and we'll have a few others. We'll also have some field-type liaisons that will enable us to communicate some of this level of conversation, these levels of expectations to all the entities of the PMO wherever you may be located. And so this particular team is, for now, in the absence of a better name, it will be referred to as our Corporate Leadership Board. So anytime you hear the term Corporate Leadership Board, it meant that we, as a board, as a leadership team, have met together on it and have either developed a policy or come up with some decisions related to that. So as the organization continues to roll out, look for some of those phrases and organizational ideas in order to step forward with that. And I'm grateful to work with these guys. We meet every Monday. For your information, we meet every Monday from 10 till at least 11:30. Most times so far it's been well beyond that as we spool things up here. Will we get it right out of the chute? Yeah, no. We'd love to be able to say that. In theory, just like with a lot of the programs we work, in theory, it's going to be perfect and it's going to be the resolution to everybody's greatest hope and dream. But the reality is, if it's left in theory, it will always be perfect. It's only through the pain and the heartache of fully deploying and implementing that we truly see the adjustments that need to be made. And so I offer you that thought that we are determined to make this a world-class organization, but that to get there, there may be a bump or two along the way. We ask for your communication, your frankness, your patience, and helping us to get to where it is we need to get, recognizing that until you start down the road, you don't know the bumps you're going to encounter, and I'm of the opinion, let's get started. We've been talking about it, and we've been working on it, and we've been navigating it for a long period of time. It's now time for us to come back together and to do that. That being said, we've given us a whole hour, and in a very efficient manner, your corporate leadership board has left you some time to ask questions. That being said, please recognize that some of the hardest parts of an organization like this are getting some of the I's dotted and T's crossed. Not to give an excuse for that, but some of the paperwork, the 50s, all the associated issues may cause some of us, if not all of us, some periods of pain. Please be patient with us. Communicate with us through your management team, but please be patient and we'll get it right. There are a handful or double a handful, maybe two handfuls or so of personnel that are still impacted by which organization in the reorg they'll go to. We apologize up front that dialogue continues, but we weren't going to wait till everything was 100% in theory before we started this, or we might never have gotten here. So whatever pain individually that this reorg has put on you as we continue to work through some of those open items, we apologize, but we will work on them with due diligence. So that being said, we do have a microphone that can be run around, and we've got the full team here whom I'll invite to come sit on the bench here to see who fields the right question. And we continue the sports analogies. I called this a bench. The stage here, and we'll run these out to you. So any questions? And I believe we have some folks on the phone or on the VTC. You are certainly acknowledged. Thank you for being a part of this today. If you have any questions, just please make yourself known. Otherwise, I dance. I sing, maybe not as good as Obama, but maybe as good as Romney. Anything? Anybody? On the line, anybody? Oh, we have a hand over here. Yes, right in the middle of the auditorium. And when you ask your question, we'd surely appreciate you identifying yourself and what part of the new organization you'll belong to.
That's good. I'm David Martin, C. David. I'm in terminal services. And you'd made a statement earlier that operations would develop requirements. Could you clarify that? Who does, how, what do they develop exactly? Who does requirements documents and stuff like that?
Okay, and thank you very much for raising that question. For those who did not hear it fully, I hope that you did. Ask for a clarification on who in ops is responsible for the requirements and putting together the documents, et cetera. I can share with you that we've got a team that is coming together, that is still together right now, helping to define that task and the relationship between us and mission support. Now, mission support within the ATO should be the main focus for putting those together. Now, mission support will utilize the resources of the PMO, whether that be engineering resources or some of the best practices resources in helping to develop those requirements documents. But we're still in the works of what those will look like and how they'll look going forward. Team, anybody else have a comment in that regard? But look, we're looking to focus and fine-tune that. At the same time, as an organization, we recognize that ops is just one source of the input to the funnel, if you will, that are all of the things that will come to the ATO or to the PMO. At the same time, they will be where we go once we get to those definition and design phases of the 4Ds. So, a great question, something to acknowledge the fact that we're not fully there yet. And so, thank you. Anything else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jeff Chisholm, and I'm wondering about the JRC. How does the JRC work into all of this?
Thank you very much. The JRC will remain intact. The JRC's responsibility is still to set the course and priorities and to monitor the progress of programs as it relates to the overall FAA. Now, as we move forward, will that role change as a result of some of the program reviews and how we advance those program reviews? It may, just a little bit. But as of right now, the JRC remains in force, as do the requirements associated with the JRC. Good question. Back in the back over here. Thanks, Mike, for doing this for me. And we have a place at the JRC. I am a member of the JRC and will continue to be as we move forward.
Good morning, I'm Amiana Williams, Navigation Services. When you're talking about priorities for programs, what about the programs that are not baseline programs, such as ILS and programs of that nature? How will the priorities be set for those programs?
Well, if they don't fit, they're not funded, right? So then we just move on. No. I was kidding. Yeah, gotta go. ILS programs have just shut down. It's a good thing it's a pretty day out, right? Yeah, I'll be careful. You want to talk to that, Jim? Yeah, thanks. Here you go. Use this one. Okay. We also have the microphone up here that works.
So pretty soon there won't be any, quote, unbaseline programs because the AEB is trying to, in fact...
Hold it up a little closer so that our friends on the phone or line can hear too.
That's true. Maybe I need to walk over here.
Come on over.
So we're trying in the AEB to establish things we call variable quantity programs, facilities programs, and I forget what the third one is, but...
Tech refresh.
And well, we have tech refresh. Anyway, the variable quantity is exactly what you're talking about, Amiana. The ILSs of the world, radio buys, things where we're trying to just replace things in the nest that we know are going to be there a very long time, even with the advent of Nextgen and this rollout. So how will it all get prioritized? Right now, we have the CIT, the Capital Investment Team, and it's going to continue on, but the PMO is going to actually take a much larger role in that process, because previously where it was an en route terminal, sysops and tech ops all trying to argue for the budget, well, now it's just us. So we're going to have to get together and sort of establish what is the priority for our own programs. And that's going to be a critical function. This year, we're going to run the CIT kind of the way we did legacy-wise, only because of all the accounting that has to be done. But in fact, the PMO will more or less have to rack and stack our programs and let finance know, okay, these are our priorities based on inputs we got from mission support services, inputs we get from en route terminal and sysops. So we'll be more or less a major player in that CIT process. And of course, the CIT still has Nextgen folks, finance folks, and others on it. But there will be, in fact, a process by which we establish priorities for all of our programs, including those referred to as unbaselined at the moment, but in the future will be known as variable quantity programs with flexible baselines associated with them. So we acknowledge the envelope of the funding for the program, but we also recognize we have to vary how many we buy, what the quantity will be year to year. So that's the concept.
And thank you very much, Jim. And let me add to that the fact that I have already started working and communicating with my colleagues to establish a consistent process, if you will, of introducing those priorities, these same priority sets for the three divisions of or benefit pools. Just kidding. The pools of priorities that need to be established, and up-leveling those to the rest of the ATO, so that we can, as an ATO, step forward that these are indeed our priorities, and then finance hears that, of course, and the rest of the FAA hears that, and then we all walk forward in unison in support of what those priorities are. And when we need to, some of those conversations are very difficult, and it genuinely is a series of, wow, must-haves. Which of the must-haves get some semblance of a reduction? Because we didn't get here by default, we got here honestly, and we all recognize that. But these are difficult times, and we're introducing to the senior leadership of the ATO a path to make those hard decisions. Great question. Thank you very much. Over here, Mike.
Yeah, I'm coming.
For online, they may not be able to hear you, so we'll wait for you.
Just a question about the 4Ds we're going through deploy, and you mentioned that would include the support after the product is deployed. And so I'm assuming we're total lifecycle support in the PMO. And if that's true, are we going to include the ops funding as part of our baselines, and are we going to straighten that out? And because it's kind of a mixed bag right now.
Yeah, and I get that, and that is a complex area that was inconsistent. So it is one of the things on our docket to bring consistency to, as well as an understanding of when that transition takes place. And as you noted, by vertical aligning the organization, for example, under Vinny, where we've got some air traffic systems that are being introduced, and second level as part of that, they will have the opportunity to negotiate, if you will, and establish that path to maintenance, deployments, maintenance, and sustainment. Excellent, and no question, and this is exactly, to be honest with you, each of these questions are exactly why the thought came that we needed to bring this organization together into one. There's some of the outlying gaps. There's going to be redundancies. Configuration control boards, for example, we may not need to have one that lines up with each line organization. We may just have one for the PMO, so we'll reduce those redundancies. At the same time, by coming together, we're going to expose, in a larger way, in our opinion, some of the gaps that are out there. And that's where we need all of us as members of this organization to step up and to acknowledge those gaps and to give input towards the resolution of those gaps. Question in the back here.
Clayton McKendra, are you going to introduce ISO 9000 or any of these types of standards as an approach to operations?
Excellent, excellent question. For us to suggest that we're going to reinvent the wheel as we come together as a program management organization would be, going against one of the purposes, one of the three main purposes. So absolutely, we're going to look across the board at best practices and what fits for the organization. If that's ISO 9000 or any of the other programs, we'll move down that road. We'll entertain and work and go down that road, if appropriate. Right here in the middle. I should have had each of you stand up, I feel. Thank you for standing up, by the way, for that question. Thank you.
Sure. I'm just curious to know how you plan.
Name?
Julie Flores Kriegsfeld.
Hi, Julie.
I'm wondering how you plan to communicate your vision and integrate it into the new culture of the PMO.
Okay. Excellent, excellent question. Well, it doesn't begin with this meeting today, and I encourage and challenge everybody in this room not to let it end with this today. We are a large organization who, in many cases, are coming together from far and wide areas. I believe we may have somebody as far away as San Juan or Alaska on the line today. We're all over the place, so you're absolutely accurate. So we've come together with the ATO Communications Organization, And we're trying to develop a communication strategy to help us to reinforce these things. But I ask each member of the organization to step forward, even from a meeting like this, and start us down that road of culture change, recognizing what our priorities are in terms of the overall organization, finding consistency, introducing best practices, and managing people from a performance and accountable way. And as we start moving down the road of doing that, and you'll start to see, coming from the corporate leadership board, opportunities to do that, then we'll get there. But we're creating a communication strategy. If appropriate, we'll bring in even some contract support to help us get that messaging out. Anybody else? Did I miss anything in any of these answers, gentlemen and lady? No? Yes, there's another question. I knew if we gave the awkward pause long enough, somebody would step forward.
Hi, I'm Annabelle Flores. I'm under Jackie Hill, under weather. You mentioned about excellence in teams and can be built and not through default. I was wondering how you set your criteria in selecting and determining those criteria. Are you going to be like announcing or and selecting positions? I mean, are you going to just default, or what will be the criteria and who kind of set those criteria?
Thank you very much. So we are at present, we have under Dave Ingram, who also will run program control organization after the transition. He's heading up a transition team right now that are helping to address each of these issues, including the position descriptions associated with some of the new organizations that will come into play, as well as address across the board those standard operating practices and procedures that need to be put into play in order for some of these things to take place. We could not wait any longer to bake, if you will, all of the items and theories before we started this, so part of that will be a work in progress. But as for the positions of the organization, there will be, I can share with you that we worked closely with the Nextgen office, who are coming together with their organization right now as a result of Foundations of Success as well. We recognized that there were areas within Nextgen that some of our very talented and skilled people might be interested in, but that you didn't know what we would have as a program management organization either. So we asked them, and they agreed, and they stood down until we were ready to have this type of a dialogue openly with our organization. They are now beginning to announce some of the positions within their organization, just as we will be doing the same. So from an organizational position announcement perspective, we're going to go out, but also from the other organization and announcements and developing our best practices in that regard, we'll have two streams of information and capability. But hopefully, as you look at next-gen opportunities, you'll also compare and contrast that with possible program management opportunities, and we'll work together to put the best people in the best seats at the right time. So there will be many opportunities coming up. So take a look at where your passions are and what fits your passions as it relates to those opportunities. Other questions? I think we're running out of time, or we just hit the time. One more question, and then we'll send you guys out to lunch. It is a pretty day out, albeit a bit cold. What's that? Can't we?
This is Dave
Today,
Martin.
one and only time, Jim Mack.
This is Dave Martin, C. David again.
Yes.
Typically with every transition, there's an element of confusion every time that we've done it. So are you putting together any workshops or anything to show the changes in the functionality so everyone gets on board a lot faster?
Yeah, thank you very much. A major part, and I know that it's still to be articulated, a major component of both the transition team and program control organization as it spools up is to help us in that regard. The COM program that was a part of the answer to the question, our COM strategy will be a part of that as well, and then your management team. Your management team will come together and will be able to articulate some of the components, some of the standard operating procedures that will help overcome that. But you're absolutely right. For me to stand up here and suggest that we've got all the I's dotted and T's crossed and that we're perfect and ready to go forward and that it's going to be so smooth, kind of like ERAM was when it was introduced in June of 2009, that nobody will even notice. Remember, those who were working the terminal aspect of that, we kind of made that claim. Now, but if we don't start identifying some of those opportunities to communicate better, then we won't get there. And so we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to try, and we do have some avenues and some strategies in place that could help facilitate that. But look to your management team. Managers, look to your managers, and let's see if we can't create a communication flow both directions that help alleviate some of those concerns and gaps. Thank you, everybody. I think we've lost the use of the VTC time and the room. The dialogue continued today. It did not begin or end today. As you ponder upon the things that you either heard or did not hear, things that you know, have observed, or want to observe, take the opportunity, take the time to not just think about it in your own mind, but to communicate about it, to send forward information, to talk with your managers, to spend time outlining and detailing some of those concerns so that they can be addressed. The dialogue continues. We'll have more of these all hands. We'll have more opportunities to come together. When we do, let's hope that we'll be able to have received some feedback from you that makes us do it a little bit better and be a little further along. All right? We're all part of the PMO now. Embrace that. We'll look to put out, and you saw a branding ideal on your invitation or your welcome. We're looking to come together as a unit and as an organization, and it's through your help and your ability to embrace that we'll be able to do it. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again very soon.